starts to emerge as children
start
get a
to
sense of their
become
own
a
self-identity.
sense of
So
their own
self
self-identity.
allows you to construct
You to
a narrative of who you are, where you've been, and how it all fits together as a story of who you are. So both the I and the me are aspects of the self, but they have both different components in a sense.
different components.
So when you use the word illusion, are you saying that the self doesn't exist, or are you saying that a concept and a construct is just an idea?
It's a construct.
It's just a construct.
It's a narrative
It's a
generated by the brain.
narrative
It's a characterization
by the brain,
which allows you to make sense of things and actually interact with each other, because you could interact with a multitude of influences. It would just be overwhelming for a brain. So we have this sense of identities and self. But I should point out that illusions can still be very real in the brain. So I think I talk about that in the opening, showing that a typical visual illusion is one of these ones where you see a square, which actually isn't really there. It's just made out of the contours of all the shapes around it. Now the spooky thing is that if you go into the brain, you can find networks of neurons which are firing to that imaginary square. So the brain is still registering it, even though objectively it isn't out there in the world. So I think that that's something that is quite mind-blowing, that even though something isn't actually there, if you're perceiving it, then the brain is treating it as if it could be.
So why did we evolve this
What
self-illusion? What advantage does it provide us broadly?
I think this
provides
is,
us broadly.
If we talk about the I and the me again,
if we talk about the I and the me, conscious awareness is a way of keeping track of the outcomes,
all the unconscious processes
of all the unconscious.
So we feel the authorship of action. We feel we are making the choices and decisions. Of course, there are lots of unconscious processes which are feeding into that decision making all the time. Yet we feel consciously that we are doing it. And so this enables us to keep track of the multitude of hidden processes. And that's how we know what we like and what our preferences are, what we don't like. So that's the I. When it comes to the me, again, I think having a characterization of who you are allows you to interact and know what you like and plan for the future. So having this sort of summary of experiences, both in terms of the unconscious processes which feed into every decision you've made, and also a kind of narrative or autobiography of who you are, just makes life a lot easier to live, having these sort of summaries.
So why do we not see this sort of self-illusion in other animals? Why does it seem to be something that's primarily human?
Well, we don't know that for sure. It's getting to the question of measuring conscious awareness. As much as we'd like to try, we really can't get inside the consciousness of animals. And I suspect, like many other people, there's a very degree of worms are conscious or aphids are conscious. But I can imagine that, as you move up the animal tree, that you start to approximate what it is to have human consciousness, but it wouldn't be the same as a chimpanzees or a gazelle. They're clearly consciousness, and I don't know where it came from or how it evolved. So I haven't gotten the answer for that. But it is something that we use very effectively to plan our actions. It gives us a lot of flexibility in our control of behavior, and to be adaptive, which is something that other animals generally don't have.
Since we're in this, we've wandered off into the realm of speculation.
Okay, sorry, yeah, go on.
No, I since you're a super expert in this, I would love to hear your thoughts on one of my favorite concepts in science fiction. Do you think that perhaps a similarly complex could give rise to consciousness and be self-aware, like a very complex AI or something like that? What are your thoughts on that?
What's your very thought? I'd have to say I agree with you, because I'm a materialist, so I don't believe that there are spirits and souls. And if you are a materialist and you believe the brain is a very complex system of structures and neural networks, frankly, the number of potential patterns is almost
practices are almost infinite, but almost infinite,
then yes,
there's no reason why
sufficiently sophisticated
sophisticated
systems could become self-aware. Because otherwise you'd have to have a non-materialist account, which would then introduce pixie dust and spooks and souls and stuff like that. And whilst they may exist, I'm not denying that they don't exist. I just haven't seen any reliable, good evidence for them. And we do know that if you change the brain, you change the self.
Change the brain, you change
so
the
there's
self.
There's a lot of good evidence for materialism.
A lot of good evidence for materials and non-materialism.
Don't get me wrong. I
But
mean,
don't get me wrong.
that might sound very reductionist. People don't like reductionism. They don't like the idea that you're simply kind of a meat machine. We're a very complex meat machine because we're a machine which has evolved in a sea of meat machines. Our brains are sharing information, which is why we have such a long childhood. You think about it. We have proportionally the longest childhood of any animal on this planet. And I don't think that's just so we can play football or sit around loafing about. It's because we need to learn to become selves. We need to learn to become socialized, to become integrated. So we're sharing information, and that information is non-material, clearly, because this is it doesn't have a material base. It's word of mouth, it's information, it's instruction, and that's the information which is being distributed on these brains that each of us have. So I don't find it as reductionist as people initially think when they hear this. It's much more the case that we're a very integrated system, and I think we're one of the most social animals.
One of the most social animals on the planet.
I like the meat machine. I'm going to use that.
Meat machine. I like that.
Oh, I didn't think it. I think it was Marvin Minsky, the AI. That's why when you mentioned AI, I immediately thought of Marvin.
I thought of Marvin.
Meat. We're made of meat. Yeah, we're meat. We're wet and squishy.
We're red and squishy.
So when we see two identical twins, and we notice that they have
different personalities,
and if we know the self is an illusion, then what is it that we're actually noticing?
What is it that we're noticing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, why isn't the case? Because in the book, I make a big argument that because we are social animals, we're socially constructed. So a lot of the aspects of who we are stand in stark reflections of those around us.
Who are around us, the way we evaluate ourselves,
is by comparing ourselves to others. And of course that varies from culture to culture, and the West are very individualistic. And so when I say that we're socially constructed
animals,
how come twins
are
why are they not? How come children are so different? And so then we get into the whole issue about genetics and so forth. Well, clearly genes and temperaments, and we do inherit a lot in biology. I'm not denying there is a component which is nativist. There's a component which we inherit. But that always plays out in a social environment. And if it was the case that it was always genetic, then identical twins should be absolutely identical in everything, and yet they're not. On all measures of personality, they're generally more than 50% the same. So there's a lot of variance, even with genetically identical individuals, which suggests that the environments are playing an important role. So I think that there's got to be an explanation of the combination of the biology, what you get from your parents, and the environments in which you're raised. And I explore this to some extent in the book, talking about differences between concepts of self in the Far East and in the West, because they are different.
Could
you speak more to that?
What are those differences
from culture to culture?
Okay,
so if I say, David, tell me about yourself.
David, tell me about yourself.
As a typical Westerner, you would probably describe yourself in terms of and what you own, things like that. For example, your hobbies. If you pose that question to people who don't live in individualistic societies, more collectivists, which typically is in the Far East, but you don't even have to go to the Far East. In Africa, for example, there are some tribes that are very collectivist. So, for example, they wouldn't value individual objects in the way that we do. We use objects as a way of kind of extending ourselves. This is a claim that's been made by William James again. But other marketing people have known that we buy things to signal to others who we think we are. We're using this as a way of advertising who we are. Collectivist societies, like I said, tell me about yourself. They're much more likely to describe themselves in terms of their colleagues, the communal activities.
So they see themselves embedded much more socially than an individualistic society. Now, that doesn't mean their brains are different. It's just the way they're used to talking about themselves. But here's an interesting point. You know, I was telling you about infantile amnesia, that you can't remember things from your early childhood. Well, if you try that same test with children from the East, they're much better. They have a much better memory about their early childhood. And it turns out that one of the interesting ideas is that because the parents speak to them and talk to them about their day much earlier, and they will describe it and who they did what with whom. What they're doing is they're helping the child construct their identity. And I think when you facilitate that identity through the narrative telling, that enables you to link all the facts together in a more meaningful way. And that's why I think they've got a much richer sense of who they are. So that's intriguing.
It's amazing.
That's amazing.
You also talk in the book
in the book some
this very specific illusion. You actually write that you say that our self exists, or yourself exists as a reflection of the world holds up to us. Could you help me understand that?
Sure. Help me understand that. Yeah. Well, of course. Actually, you know, I happened to have a chance reading over your blog, by the way, and I see you had you did a piece on Baumeister and ego depletion.
Right.
A fascinating piece, by the way, and I'm not just sucking up to you. I'm really well.
Oh, thank you so much.
But you talk about ostracism there, and this is a really important thing. You know, one of the most important things to us as a social species is not to be excluded. Now, I know there's some people who don't like other people and they're hermits, but they're the exception. They're the weirdos, okay?
The rest of us want to be accepted.
And so we will do anything to ingratiate ourselves into the group. And how we feel about ourselves, our happiness, is reflected by those around us. We're so sensitive to criticism. You know, one of the greatest anxieties that people have, and this is based on data from the American Psychiatric Association, is public speaking. Speaking in public is one of the greatest fears that people have, because they fear that they're going to be evaluated. And the fear of rejection is so much that we just we can't abide that. So our self is a constant characterization of how we would like to be seen by other people. So that's what I mean by the reflected self, that we will shift that, of course. We will change the nature of that character depending on the circumstances. So I talk about multiple selves, not to say that there are actually individual selves, but just the way that characterization can shift from context to context. And I think that explains a lot of anomalies. It explains, for example, when people say, I wasn't myself last night.
I wasn't myself last night.
If you weren't yourself, then who were you? Or if you say, oh, it was the wine talking. Well, wine doesn't talk, does it? I mean, basically, when we do things which are so out of character, the characterization, then we try to excuse it and say that it's not who I really am. But I think, again, that this is a problem of the way that we think about the self as an individual.
This is the self as an individual.
And it's just my speculation, but you have a character that you aspire to be. Whenever you fall short of that, that's when you get that icky feeling, and you need to explain it to yourself and other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you saw, there's a book, it's just out by, I think it's Bonnie Ware or something like that. She's an Australian palliative nurse, so she looks after the terminally ill. And I think it's called 5 Regrets of Dying, where she basically interviewed all these people who are on their deathbeds about if they had any regrets. And the number one regret, by far, was the sense that people didn't think that they had been themselves and that they were always trying to please other people. So, you know, when you have the clarity of death looming, people sort of look back over their lives and they realize the extent to which they have been living a life shaped by others around them.
Living a life shaped
by others. So fascinating. I had a sociology professor once tell the class, be careful when you label people, because people tend to fulfill the labels that they're exposed to.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. And that work on ostracism, it's fantastic. You know, people when they're ostracized will become obsequious, will do anything to try ingratiate themselves back into the group. And we've seen it happen. And frankly, you know, that's what the problem of teenagers are. They're trying to establish their self-identity. They've got the pecking order. And that's why it becomes so self-conscious. It's why boys take risks. You know, it's nothing to do with this brain being immature. I've heard this before. I mean, there might be some brain maturation, but I think it's more to do with need to establish yourself as you know, bravado. And need to get yourself different to your parents. In a sense, trying to find who you are is really trying to stake your territory out as being different to your parents, which is why teenage rebellion is so common in the West, because this is what is culturally what we're supposed to do. And then that also explains why you turn into your parents when you reach your mid-20s. Your biology wins out.
Because your biology wins out.
Oh my God, I am my dad.
That
happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
Let me ask one last question before we sum everything up, because this is something I have noticed. You see videos like this on YouTube. When you undergo anesthesia, you can really feel what I would assume is my sense of self slipping away. And if you're someone who is sort of babysitting a person who's getting an operation, you can actually watch as they wake up. Their sense of self return to them. What is it that we're experiencing? What is it that we're seeing in those situations?
Well, you can see it with just morning. I mean, waking up every morning. It's kind of weird that you kind of lose your consciousness every night, and somehow the brain reconstructs that character in the morning. Well, we lead fairly structured lives, so there's lots of information out there. Although I'm sure every listener's had that experience where they've woken up in a strange place, and they just feel that sense of anxiety. You know, when you suddenly find yourself in a new environment, that can be a very anxiety-inducing situation. But yeah, I mean, whether it's through anesthetic or it's sleepiness or drunkenness, the brain can generally recreate a characterization of the self. Equally, of course, you can see it fractionate under the influence of drugs, under the influence of various, psychedelics, even alcohol. People's behavior changes, which is, by the way, when anesthetics, people start, swearing and doing all sorts of things, and they become disinhibited because you're basically turned off the frontal lobes. The frontal lobes are the structures which make us so different from the nearest cousins and chimpanzees. And these are the mechanisms which regulate our behavior. So if you think about all the unconscious processes, the drives, the urges, the need to swear at people, whatever, they're generally kept under wraps by your frontal lobes. But when you switch those off, then these behaviors come to the fore. But yeah, generally your brain can reconstruct that character. But that's a constant process of reconstruction. And as we get older, of course, you see progressive loss of that characterization and dementia. That's, I think, one of the most distressing aspects of the disease, is that people that you know in your life suddenly become a different person as parts of their brain start to break down. So again, coming back to this comparative, this must be an emergent property of neat machine.
It's so odd though that you can, as you go into unconsciousness or watch something that goes into unconsciousness, you would think that if it was a very simple machine, you were just hitting the reset button on their personality. So when they return to consciousness, then perhaps they would be slightly different as a self. But it's as if as all the systems come back online, the self that you're used to seeing, you're used to experiencing, returns back in full force with nothing lost.
And nothing lost.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, of course, changes are subtle. I mean, it does change. Your self changes over the lifetime, and you only have to read things that you wrote when you were 16, or you can suddenly you don't recognize. I mean, there's a sense of continuity, and that's one thing I talk about the book. And that's why the sense of self is so compelling. Because it's always with us when we're conscious, and we don't feel that we're changing as such. But on one level, we do know we are changing, because we've all experienced that. But the brain has a whole set of biases to try and reframe and keep that continuity of self all the time. So, for example, cognitive dissonance. We generally think of ourselves as a lot smarter than most people, better looking than most people, and a better sense of humor. We're all above average, but we can't all be above average. So when we do things which don't fit with that characterization, we reframe it just so we maintain the continuity. So, for example, if you're in a relationship that doesn't work out, not everyone, by the way, but if it doesn't work out, you'll say, the other person was a jerk, or I didn't want that job anyway. So you just reframe everything to fit with this characterization of someone who doesn't waste time or effort on jobs or people. So we've got these ways of changing the story, tweaking it all the time to keep it consistent.
Well, so if people are super interested in you and they want to know more about what you're up to, how can they find you on the internet?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I'm like a bad rash. Well, what they might find really interesting are the Royal Institution Christmas lectures, which I delivered on the BBC in the UK. This is the biggest kind of science lecture for a general public. In fact, it's aimed at teenagers. So if they Google me and Royal Institution, they'll get to that page. Of course, I have a book out, The Self-Illusion, which is getting, I think it's really working. I think people are really interested by it, because I just assumed these things were so obvious. But you tend to, when you get specialized, you forget what is common sense knowledge and what is expertise. So that book's around.
That book is around.
I'm on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube.
So I'm around. You'll find me.
You'll find me all over the place. So what are you working on right now scientifically?
Well, I'm doing
a couple things.
You know, the
working with
production company who made the movies, the animations for Pixar. Well, they don't work with Pixar, but they work with Spielberg. Artman are a Bristol-based company. So we're analyzing children's interpretation, understanding of cartoons, which is a lot of fun. I am doing another book called Brainstorming. Which is due in January, and then I'm off to the Far East in July to film the television series for the Royal Institution Christmas lectures for the Japanese and also in Singapore. So yeah, I've got a busy summer.
Yeah, so I got a busy summer.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I love everything you're up to. I consider you a kindred spirit out there in the world, and just thank you so much. And if you ever need anything from us, just let us know.